Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our focus is completely on, well, one of the most, transformative and financially successful careers in modern media. We're talking about Oprah Winfrey.
Right. And when people think Oprah, it's usually, inspiration, maybe empowerment, self-help comes to mind.
Sure.
But the sources we've gathered today, they really go beyond that standard public story. They kind of force us to look at the foundations, the sharp edges, maybe, the ambition, the strategies that built this personal brand into, well, a massive empire.
That's the key thing, isn't it? We're looking at the specific milestones, but also the controversies, the really relentless brand management that's detailed in these sources. We're tracing her path from, let's face it, tough start, right up to being the only Black entertainer on the Forbes 400 list back in '95.
It's a story of reaching this incredible ubiquity, but through, it seems, ultimate control.
Exactly. Our task today is to unpack how that brand was built. Sometimes it looks like out of pretty raw personal trauma.
Yeah, sometimes through some pretty sensational content, too.
Right. And always, it seems, with this laser focus on market dominance. So for you, the listener, this deep dive should hopefully reveal a bit of the blueprint of power that's kind of hidden beneath the public persona.
Definitely.
Okay, let's get into it. We really have to start at the beginning, the foundation. And for Oprah, that seems inextricably linked to her, well, let's call it contentious childhood narrative.
It is contentious. And this narrative, it seems, it both launched her nationally, but also caused these deep, lasting family rifts.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating, I think, is the power dynamic around how her trauma was revealed. The sources detail her public revelation, that she'd suffered sexual molestation as a child.
Which was, a huge moment. Profound personal sharing, resonated incredibly deeply with her audience at the time.
Absolutely. But then the sources, they paint this much darker, much more conflicted family reaction. And that's a piece of context that often gets missed, I think, in the, the public retelling.
Right, so the family's first reaction wasn't sympathy or belief. According to these accounts, they saw her more as a promiscuous teenager.
Yeah, that's the phrase used. Someone who supposedly threw herself at men. They just didn't believe her when she finally spoke out.
That's tough.
Yeah. And this is where the tension gets really, really sharp. We have quotes from a relative, Mrs. Esters, who actually went on record.
Okay.
And she stated she did not believe a bit of it, just flat out.
Wow.
She even doubled down, suggesting Oprah was, quote, a wild child running the streets of Milwaukee, and basically just wasn't accepting discipline.
So this skepticism then leads directly to this really explosive claim about calculated timing.
Exactly. Mrs. Esters suggested, and this is according to the source material, that the whole sexual abuse story was consciously used for publicity.
When? Like, specifically?
At the exact moment Oprah was taking her show national. It was a crucial time. The quote is pretty stark. That story helped launch Oprah and make her what she is today.
Oof, that's a heavy accusation.
It really is. And it raises this immediate question for us, right? Regardless of whether the accusation itself is true or not, which obviously we can't determine, the source material suggests there was this strong belief inside the family, or at least among some relatives, that this deeply personal trauma was used strategically. Leveraged, exactly. And the final kind of tragic note in this part of the story is the power imbalance. The source notes that while maybe no one in the family actually believes her childhood stories, or at least that's the claim, they're now basically paralyzed. They're afraid to contradict her publicly.
Why?
Because she's so rich and powerful. That's the quote.
That really is the definition of achieving a scale of influence that completely warps personal reality, doesn't it? It shifts the whole foundation of her narrative. It's not just a shared story of overcoming adversity anymore.
No.
It's a narrative that's protected by this immense financial power.
And that ambition, it wasn't just about controlling her personal story. It was apparently there very early in her professional life, too. Let's look at her early career. Nashville, 1974.
Okay, Nashville. So she gets hired, what, $150 a week?
Yeah.
Seems modest for TV then.
Relatively, yeah. But the recognition came fast. She quickly got awards, noted as Nashville's first Black female on television. Things like National Executive Woman of the Year, Outstanding Businesswoman.
So recognized for her presence, her personality, even if maybe the technical skills were still developing.
Exactly. And that's the crucial detail about Nashville. She wasn't apparently a perfect fit for the hard news side of things.
Right.
An associate there, Chris Clark, noted that while she was terrific as a personality, she wasn't a great reporter, and specifically couldn't write. which is vital, right? Because it showed her real talent was in connecting with people, not necessarily in the mechanics of journalism.
And there's a specific story about that, isn't there? A technical failure.
Yeah, a great anecdote. Apparently, she caused the station to go black for 2 minutes during a 5-minute news cut-in one morning.
Why?
Because she hadn't finished typing her script, just hadn't finished it.
Oh, wow. That's not good in live news.
Not good at all. And the sources note Oprah herself later acknowledged this, admitting Chris Clark should have fired me that day.
Huh.
So that inability maybe to fit into the strict discipline of the news desk, it kind of highlighted that she needed a different kind of platform, one where her personality could really dominate.
So this failure, in a way, helps shape the blueprint for her stardom.
Seems like it. She wasn't aiming for just local success, clearly. Very early on, she told a Black interviewer her clear intention was to become the Black Barbara Walters.
Setting the bar high from the start.
Incredibly high. And the financial goal was specific, too. She aimed for $500,000 a year, based on Walters making, what, $1 million back then?
That's very precise. That's a target-driven mindset, not just some vague dream.
Absolutely. And her market choices reflect that, too. Equally calculated. The decision to move to Baltimore, which was obviously pivotal later on.
Yeah.
That wasn't an accident. The sources are clear. She only considered the move because WJZ was the #1 station in its market.
Ah, okay. So she wasn't taking a gamble on some up-and-coming place. She was strategically hitching her wagon to proven success, making sure the next step was definitely upwards.
Exactly. Meticulously tracking the trajectory. Interestingly, initially, she apparently attributed her success mostly to luck.
Really?
Yeah, told Gail Choice she was lucky, 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 in the right place at the right time, just pure chance.
Huh.
But then years later, once the empire was built, that story shifted quite dramatically. It became God's plan for her.
Right. The narrative evolves from luck to destiny.
That shift right there, from chance to divine destiny, it really marks that transition, I think, from just an ambitious personality to a fully constructed brand identity.
Yeah, it's like the architect starts rewriting the history of the building after it's famous, making the foundation seem totally inevitable. Which leads us right into how she managed that transition, how she shaped the actual presentation, physical and emotional, of the brand.
Okay, so if Section 1 showed us the raw ambition, maybe the strategic use of personal history, this next part really reveals the, surgical precision she applied to her public image.
Yeah, and there's clear evidence of this image consciousness really early on, like dating back to her time at Sears Roebuck Charm School.
Charm School, really? Sears Roebuck?
Apparently. And these aren't just vague memories. The sources give specific details about techniques she learned and used. Things you can even see in her yearbook pictures.
Like what kind of techniques?
Well, things like using crossed arms in an X shape, apparently to deflect focus from the stomach area.
Yeah.
Tilting her head up slightly to elongate a double chin. Standing in what the source calls the classic model pose. These were specific, learned things to control how people saw her physically. That's quite deliberate. And this focus on presentation, it seems it fueled a whole debate later on about her appearance, particularly around race and media standards.
Absolutely. There are comments from Lavinia, the relative we mentioned earlier, comparing Oprah's early headshot described as showing dark skin and a wide nose to her later magazine covers, which Lavinia called a photoshopped glamazon looking light-skinned.
Wow. So Lavinia was basically saying the magazine image wasn't the real Oprah.
Yeah, she asserted the real Oprah is Sophia in the color purple, arguing that this highly manufactured magazine image was a distortion, which, speaks volumes about the pressures in media then, maybe still now, to conform to a certain beauty standard.
Often a lighter standard, yeah.
And how intensely that brand had to work to present that specific glamazon image, especially on her own magazine covers later.
So this carefully manufactured persona, this glamazon, was then placed at the front of a show that was, at least in its early days, pretty dramatically sensational.
Oh, yeah. We really need to dig into the content evolution of the Oprah Winfrey Show itself to understand where that mass appeal came from initially.
Because when it first went national, it was playing in that 80s, early 90s daytime talk show arena, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of demanded shock value.
Completely. The sources highlight a critic, Jeff Jarvis from People magazine, who listed his top 10 favorites from her show from recent weeks back then. And it really illustrates the truly sensational nature of the content she was putting out.
Okay, let's hear some. What was on the list?
Well, the list is pretty comprehensive, and it shows this deliberate chase for the bizarre, the controversial, the shocking. You've got topics like hairdresser horror stories,
Okay.
housewife prostitutes,
Wow.
men who fight over women.
Standard daytime fare for the time, maybe?
Maybe, but it gets more specific. Man-stealing relatives.
Ouch. Family drama.
Exactly. Then polygamy, and even get rich and quit work. Just this wide range hitting all sorts of buttons.
It's a real mix. And this context is so important because it contrasts so sharply with the later brand, the sort of high-road empowerment brand she cultivated.
Hugely.
Yeah.
The sources detail one specific week that really highlights this mix. After doing a heavy, serious social justice show about racism in Forsyth County, Georgia on a Monday.
Right. Tackling a tough issue.
Yeah. But then she apparently devoted the rest of that same week to topics like drag queens, women murderers, religious fundamentalists, and sexy clothes.
So a complete pivot from serious social commentary to pure sensation almost overnight.
Exactly. That deliberate mix, it shows a really savvy understanding of pacing, maybe,
Yeah.
and audience hunger. You do the serious topic, gain some credibility, maybe some critical acclaim, but then you immediately follow it up with the high drama, sensational stuff to keep the ratings juiced. It was really an exercise in balancing that social responsibility, or the appearance of it, with pure entertainment spectacle.
And as that spectacle and her fame grew, so did the need for absolute control. It seems she transitioned from just managing the show's content to managing the entire external perception of the whole empire.
Yeah, which brings us to the control and secrecy that seems to be at the heart of the operation, according to these sources.
The shift in how she dealt with tabloids is really telling here.
It really is. Early on, the sources say she actually cooperated with them, even reportedly paid someone to plant positive, do-good stories about her charity donations.
Using them strategically, a functional relationship.
Yeah, transactional. But once the brand hit, critical mass, that approach just dissolved. It turned into outright hostility, aggressive suppression.
Right.
Her revulsion towards tabloids apparently grew intense. She started calling them verbal pornography.
Strong words.
Very. And she instituted these internal crackdowns, firing employees immediately if they leaked any information. The brand couldn't be influenced anymore. It had to be rigidly controlled.
And the Mary rule is maybe the peak example of this.
It's one of the most telling, yeah. This company rule instructing employees they had to refer to her as Mary when they were outside the office.
Why Mary? Just a random name.
Presumably. The point was to prevent any casual conversations overheard in public from turning into tabloid headlines. I heard Mary did this wouldn't mean anything to an eavesdropper.
Wow. That highlights this incredibly high-stakes environment where any tiny unauthorized detail could potentially blow up and destabilize this carefully built image.
Totally. And the sources also detail some specific personal obsessions that might have driven this need for secrecy.
Like what?
Her preoccupation with media coverage of her weight, for one, and the distress that unflattering photos apparently caused her. The sources say it frequently brought her to tears.
So this wasn't just cold corporate strategy. There was a deep personal vulnerability there that needed constant external management and protection.
It seems so. And that need for secrecy also extended to managing past relationships, potentially damaging ones.
Ah, okay.
The sources bring up an anecdote involving the writer Jerry Oppenheimer. He interviewed a man who claimed to have been her boyfriend back in Baltimore.
What did he claim?
Well, this man alleged that he did coke with her. And maybe even more damagingly, that he had also sold drugs for a living when he was involved with her.
Oh, okay. That's potentially explosive, whether it's true or not.
Exactly. True or false, the potential for that kind of damaging information to surface really helps explain this relentless need for image containment, for silencing any potential leaks, for total control.
So we're seeing this clear arc then. Ambition drives the market choice, right? Nashville, then Baltimore. Trauma is maybe leveraged or perceived to be leveraged for national appeal.
Right.
Sensational content builds a massive audience scale needed.
Yep.
And then this intense, almost paranoid secrecy protects the increasingly valuable brand that results from all of that.
That seems to be the picture the sources paint.
So what did all this ultimately lead to? Well, the absolute pinnacle of financial success. By the mid-90s, this whole convergence, the ambition, the strategy, the control led to this absolutely unprecedented financial position for a woman in media, especially a Black woman.
Yeah, and we have very concrete evidence of this. Her listing on the Forbes list of the 400 richest Americans, October 1995.
Which was a huge milestone.
Impossible to overstate the significance of that specific achievement back then. The sources confirm at that time she was noted as the only entertainer on the list.
The only one from show business.
The only one, and critically, the only Black person on that entire list.
Wow. That's not just individual success, is it? That's a societal marker. Immense barrier-breaking wealth and power projection.
Absolutely. She effectively monetized empathy, maybe trauma, definitely sensationalism to a degree nobody had really seen before.
And she wasn't stopping there in terms of defining her footprint, right? She kept leveraging that really intimate relationship she'd built with her audience through other ventures.
Exactly. We have to talk about the magazine. Oh, the Oprah Magazine.
Right. Which became huge.
Huge. And its existence was this tangible, physical extension of the brand itself. Now, remember the relative Lavinia complaining about the Glamazon covers?
Yeah, the photoshopped look.
Well, those covers were actually essential to the magazine's success and the brand's reinforcement. They presented that idealized, aspiration-driven public image month after month.
Giving the audience a high-quality, glossy reinforcement of the persona they trusted.
Exactly. The magazine basically acted as this continuous, high-margin advertisement for the Oprah brand itself, while also being a product. It was brilliant.
And the power of that brand, the Oprah Effect, it became its own field of study almost, leading to literary and academic influence.
That's right. You start seeing her name included in serious academic work, biographical studies looking at her impact, people like Eva Illouz, Henry Louis Gates Jr. writing about her.
So her influence became so profound it turned into a case study in media, sociology, economics.
Pretty much. She transcended being just a TV host, which can be temporary, right? She became this cultural signifier, an academic subject, and obviously a financial titan. It's the ultimate ubiquity.
Which brings us back around to a kind of synthesis moment. Everything we've talked about, those early reporting struggles in Nashville. The really specific Black Barbara Walters goal. Using those charm school techniques to manage her physical image.
Right.
The early sensational shows, the housewife prostitutes era. And then that aggressive image control, the Mary rule, it seems like it all had to happen in a way.
Well, the sources, when you look at them all together, they definitely suggest a kind of necessary trajectory. The specific choices we detailed, the strategic market moves, shifting the show's content focus over time, that aggressive image control, they seem interconnected, like essential elements used to achieve this completely unparalleled level of financial and media dominance.
You mean without the huge ratings driven by the early sensationalism?
Right. Without that massive initial audience, the later Oprah effect, making books bestsellers overnight, launching careers, that might have been impossible to manifest, let alone monetize on that scale.
So she built the empire by mastering these tools of control and maybe utilizing every part of her history, however contested that history might be within her own family, to achieve that power.
That appears to be the narrative constructed from these particular sources, yes. #tag outro.
So we've taken you through quite a journey today, from, a high school student whose own family, according to these sources, didn't believe her trauma story, even accused her of using it for publicity.
Right
up to her eventual ascent as this, media empress, a trailblazing billionaire.
Right.
And the contrast between that meticulously managed Glamazon public brand and the raw ambition, the strategic calculations, the occasional controversies highlighted in these sources, it's pretty stark.
It is stark. And that contrast, I think, is really the central tension of her legacy, isn't it? We've seen the evidence, according to these accounts, of what it took to secure her place. The sensational content early on, the aggressive control measures, that fierce drive for market position.
Which leads us to a final question, really, for you, the listener, to think about, built directly from what these sources suggest. Considering they indicate her own family believed her most painful story was engineered for publicity and success, does the undeniable scale of her achievement, being the only Black person, the only entertainer on the Forbes 400 in 1995, does that ultimately justify the personal and professional lengths that she went to, including that early sensational show content? Does the end justify the means in securing her place in history?
Yeah, it's a tough one. The source material definitely suggests this tension, right, between the public image of empowerment that she later cultivated so successfully and the reported sensationalism of those early show topics, like housewife prostitutes or man-stealing relatives. It raises the question, When someone achieves that level of massive success, does the method they use to build the foundation, whether it's strategically leveraged trauma or shock value topics or rigid image control, does that ultimately become irrelevant to the legacy of the media empress?
It's like, do we judge the foundation or do we just judge the skyscraper that's built on top of it?
Exactly. That's the core question, I think.
Something to definitely mull over as you reflect on the price of, well, ubiquity. We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.